plate on the mansion gate, Kim resident, but as you stop inside, it felt nothing like home. You had been Mrs. Kim Taehyung for just few hours. The woo were said the ring exchange, but of it felt like not when your heart had been silenced through it all, not when his touch had been cold. You trailed behind him as the grand door opened, eyes soaked in the marble floor, tall, slender. All you felt was how small you were in this world. Waiting for you were four faces: his parents, his sister, and woman you didn't meet. His mother gave you a long judgmental glare before saying, "You are the reason my son was forced into this." Your British mom then began stepping forward. She raised her hand. "Save it. I said yes to this marriage for the sake of your father's company, not because I believe this girl belonged here." You stood there, rooted your finger, twisted your dress as your chest grew heavier. The woman beside her smiled, brushing imaginary dust off her designer dress. She looked so simple, she said. "I thought she at least have presence." Then I said, "That's enough, Jen." So that's who she was, the humor girlfriend. Time skipped later that night. The room was cranked back too large, the silence deafening. You sat at the window, still in your wedding attire, watching the rain, not crying, not just frozen. There was a soft knock, the door opened slowly. Tim entered carrying a folded blanket. "You didn't change," he said quietly. You shrugged. "I didn't like it. I belong enough to," he signed, walking over gently, wrapping the blanket around your shoulder. "I am sorry about the earlier," he said. "They had no right." You didn't say much later. Surface. His jaw clenched. "Because if I had my mother, I would have made sense. I didn't want to first night to be uglier than it's already." You looked at him. He looked exhausted, but there was no hatred in his gaze, just tension, something softer hiding within the surface. "Is she really your girlfriend?" he found. "No, never was. The humor is just something my mother clung to. I never felt like for her." You stayed. "Why didn't you tell me before?" "Would it have changed anything?" he asked softly. You didn't reply. Then turned to leave but paused at the door. "I'm not going to pretend this marriage style right, but I wanted to make one thing clear. You look away on touch without your consent, and no matter what's happened, I will never disrespect you, not even if the world turns against you." Then he left, and you finally cried, not because he was cruel, because he was kind and was caring more than I had ever could. Time escape. The whisper following you everywhere in the mansion. "She's not like us." Taehyung loved someone else. She just burdened. You didn't cry anymore. You just simply stopped reacting. But even silence could crack when someone purposely aimed to break you. A week into the marriage, Taehyung's mother insists you attend a charity gala, not to introduce you but to display you. A wife job to smile, she said while pinning a diamond brooch to your gloves, even when no one wants to. Tim saw your clenched fist and walking into the room. "She's not going to," he said coldly. You blinked. "It's okay, I will go." Tim looked at you, jaw tight, but said nothing more. The gala was grand, facing camera, perfumes in the air, and Big smile everywhere, you clung to their arms, your only anchor, and then she arrived in a blood red gown. She walked straight to him, ignored you completely, and placed hand on his chest.